8 minutes thing. Let's open up the floor for some questions.
Yes, thank you.
There's a few.
Morning, thank you so much. So please excuse my voice, there was something wrong in the ice last night. So you've mentioned the education requirements. You've never as the PPRA communicated that to me. So I've just paid for my PDE and I'll chat to you afterwards to get a refund because your call centers are always offline. It's been months and I've not had feedback on my exemption applications. And at the same time, the cost to my firm increased 200%. I would like to know, what am I getting in return? And how do you justify the costs and expecting me to be compliant and professional if that is not what I'm getting from you? Thank you.
For the PDE. Okay, I think, first of all, having mentioned that you paid for a PDE, if you go onto our website, I think you'll get some information which would be very helpful to you. We're in the process of updating that, so obviously if you take the trouble to go there, you'll find yourselves a little at ease, a little more at ease on what our requirements are. But as far as what we give to you, I think you need to remember that we are creatures of statute. We are created by Parliament. If you have a beef with the Act, which we do, believe me, in many instances, the person to complain to is Parliament. We did not pass the Act. We made many recommendations to Parliament in relation to the Act and to the Ministry of Human Settlements. Very few of our recommendations were included. So I think we sit with a monster, if you like, which is quite difficult for us to administer. We expect some amendments, and particularly with the regulations, because the regulations are very flawed in a number of ways. But what our duties are and what we are required to do and what our mandate is set out particularly by the Act. We are regulators in terms of that Act.
We had some more questions.
Hi, good morning. My name is Shannon. I'm from Bellboy. I just wanted to say thank you. Firstly, I think we all want to professionalize the industry, but I just had a couple of queries. I know that, Deborah, thank you, you have answered my email communications. I am grateful for that. I think the first thing I wanted to know, there was some queries on homeowners associations. If they perform functions, they would also have to have an FFC, and I just wanted to get clarity on that. Specifically where, for example, they take a percentage in sales transfers and things like that. I also think it's great that you're going to engage with the professions because I think there is still a lot of confusion between real estate and property management. Even earlier today, Delhi referred to conveyancers and commission, which doesn't apply to managing agents. That's a real estate function. And then I also just wanted to know how they, for example, trustees who are remunerated, you said would have to get an FFC, but often they're only, they're appointed for a period of a year. How long does that qualification take? And then, you said 6-month internship, they must write the exam, and then they get the FFC, but then the next person is appointed. I just wanted to understand how that would work in practice as well.
Sorry, you're referring to what?
Trustees who are remunerated.
Paid trustees.
Oh,
No.
paid trustees.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can I answer that?
Thank you.
Yeah. I think when it comes to, it's not only commission, it's a remuneration. So if you get a remuneration, we don't care, or the Act doesn't classify what type of, whether it's a commission or what, as long as you're remuneration, you must get paid.
No, but I think the difference, I think what Delhi is perhaps talking about is the fact that some managing agents take a percentage of what they take in. So whether it's done that way, whether you're paid a flat fee, whatever, you cannot get it unless you have a Fidelity Fund certificate. Yeah.
I think it's more the difference, to understand the difference between those roles.
Okay, as far as the administrator is concerned, if he's paid, he's going to have to register. And I think most administrators will find themselves getting whatever qualifications they need to get because it's part of their business. So they will get those qualifications, and whether they're an administrator for your scheme or for somebody else's scheme, they need to have they need to register. So I think you'll find that most paid administrators are going to do that. Or paid trustees, if you like, your executive trustees,
paid
rather.
trustees.
Mm.
So I just want to get clarification. There was mention made that there will be a distinction between an estate agent and a managing agent. With all due respect, that was said 9 years ago to us in Durban at a previous seminar. And still to date, there's no distinction in terms of the Act. At that stage, the EAB said they were working on the Property Practitioners Act and there will be a difference. There's still no difference, and in that time, we've still been paying it. So can we get a timeline as to say, when will there be a specific chapter just for managing agents? Because the CPD exam that we did for 2022 had nothing to do with managing agents. So with all due respect, there's a commitment from your side, but that commitment's been there for 9 years. Nothing has changed in 9 years. And second to that, can I just say, trustees not being remunerated are exempt. But again, the estate manager, caretaker, or portfolio manager take the instructions from the trustees. But they have to be property practitioners. What's the logic in that?
Okay. I think in relation to the education of the managing agents, remember that what the legislation has said, and which we have quoted, is that we need to have specific industry qualifications, and we as the PPRA cannot do it ourselves. That is why we need to consult. 9 years ago, that was what was said. I'm not sure whether the regulations were out 9 years ago in terms of specifying that whatever educational qualification, standards of training must be specific. The regulations had not been enacted to tell us that, but now they tell us that. And in fact, the process is underway. We are hoping, and I'm sure Nama will update you, we are hoping to try and finalize that by the end of this year. When it will be implemented, we're looking at next year, but we are in the process of finalizing specific requirements. So even when you speak to the CPD, it will be specific to managing agents. And we do acknowledge that in the past it was not like that, because the Act simply spoke about estate agents. However, the only way in which this abnormality could be cured was a legislative intervention, which we now have. And now we should work towards making sure that we implement that legislative intervention.
Thank you, Dilly.
Can I just perhaps add that in terms of CPD, in terms of the new regulations, CPD has to be run and driven by the professional organisation of whichever property industry is involved. So that's something which would have to come from you, it would have to be approved by us, and that's what the regulations actually envisage, so that it's what you need as opposed to what we want. As far as the the trustee is concerned, the question on trustees is, you must remember that in terms of the Act, trustees don't fall under our jurisdiction. They are not remunerated, and that's what the Act says. We can't change the Act.
But this is the thing. I understand, but we can sit here and we can debate the logic. But we need the legislator here. We need Parliament here. Mm. And look, you need to interpret it as you see it. Yeah. And sometimes it's a difficult thing for you guys. Mm. We don't have a lot of time. I'm going to have 3 questions left.
Yeah, thank you, and good morning. I think I was slightly covered by my comments here, but what I want to put out there is that legislation evolves. Obviously, there are gaps in the legislation, and you can only identify those gaps when you start implementing the legislation. And I am glad that Deborah said, look, they are looking at amendment, and I think that has to be looked at very carefully. I think the issues that are raised here are very important, that you take that into consideration when you look at your amendment. But food for thought, one issue that does not sit well with me is the issue of the administrators. And I think as you embark on the amendment of the legislation, you really need to look at that, because two key requirements that the administrator meet is that one of relate to the managing. The number one, you said it relates to the managing of the property, and number two, remuneration. And remember that legislation could not, you can't read legislation in isolation. It must be read with other pieces of legislation. The fact that the administrator is appointed by court, if the legislation provides that that administrator must register with you, there is no way that the court can ignore that, because it's part of the legislation. So I'm just saying, please look at it, because I think it's an issue that is very, very important, and it needs to be looked at. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. We've got a gentleman at the back.
Hi, sorry. Okay, we mentioned the penalization earlier in respect to state agents with regards to commissions that can be withheld for not being registered. What happens if a managing agent is not registered, refuses to get registered, but receives management fees? Do they get revoked?
Yeah.
Yes.
Remember that the Act applies to anyone who operates as a property practitioner. Whether you decide to be registered or not doesn't matter. If you go out there and you operate as a managing agent, we have jurisdiction over you, because the Act says so. So your decision not to register is irrelevant. We will still prosecute you. We will still go after that commission. And in fact, what the Act says is that we can request the remuneration from any person that is supposed to pay you. That is why we can request it from the conveyancing attorneys. And the legislation was specific in doing that, because we realized that we kept on sorry, Rudy. We kept on asking conveyancing attorneys, don't pay these property practitioners that are not registered. And they would say, EAB, do your job. So we needed a legislative intervention. So we needed a legislative intervention. Now we are on to them.
We have it.
Rudy pays. I'm on to Rudy. I don't even go for you. So, yeah. Thank you.
Well said. Thank you for that. Marina, you had a question as well?
Thank you so much for being here today. And I think I really feel heartened by the fact that you ladies are really what we've been talking about, competence. And I appreciate the information that you've given. Thank you.
Thank you.
At the same time,
Thank you very much.
At the same time, and I'm sure you know this already, but the Estate Agency Affairs Board was nothing less than abysmal in terms of their service delivery to all of us. And I'm an attorney. I've been trying to liaise with the Estate Agency Affairs Board on many, many levels. So I'd really urge you to provide comfort to the people in terms of give us confidence. Already your organization started off on a wobbly note and has been beset by internal politics and problems. We don't want to see that. We need you to get your ducks in a row. We need you to just give us confidence, because we'll back you. If we see things happening, we're fully 100% behind you.
Thank you. I think we sit here and we've got our board member there, and we acknowledge our mistakes. We acknowledge the failures that we've had as an entity in the past, and most of those have been just administrative failures, in the sense that most of our systems were not automated. But that's the step that we are taking, because manually we cannot be able to service the entire industry. We need automation within the PPRA, and we have begun that process of upgrading our systems. We've upgraded our sub to a later sub version. We are busy with the entire infrastructure, the software and everything, just to try and ensure that we are automated. And once we get to the level of automation, which will allow us to be able to effectively serve the industry, I think we will go a long way. We do apologize to the industry, but we are committed, even despite all the challenges that we have. We have the late nights just to ensure that we do service you, and we
we pledge that we'll do that.
Yes, we just ask for a little patience. When, on the 1st of February, when this Act came in, I think we were hopelessly unprepared for it. And unfortunately, it meant that most of us are sitting with a situation where sleep is at a premium at this stage. But we have a new board, we have new leadership, and we firmly believe that we're all committed to ensuring that give us a little time and we'll be where we want to be. Thank you.
Thank you for that pledge. So I've just seen that we've got an extra hour, so I'm going to open. Okay, I'm going to allow one more question from this gentleman, and then we're closing up.
Good morning. First of all, thank you as well. I just wanted to ask if you guys can look at practically looking at the support staff within a managing agent. I fully agree portfolio manager needs to be registered, but we have 25 support staff doing a function, writing a letter on behalf, doing accounting for us. And to me, that's a bit overkill to expect them to have FFCs. So now we go from paying for 5 FFCs to 30 FFCs. And to me, I think that's a bit overkill, and it's just something I think you guys should look at it, at specifically what the entity is doing. If it's one function, I don't think really that we should have it.
There is, on that point, there is a provision in the regulations, which you will have seen, which says that whoever it is who performs property practitioner activities must do so to a material degree. Now, what a material degree means, your guess is as good as mine. But of course, at the end of the day, we're going to have to work out how far that goes. But yes, that definitely is one of the criterion. And we've done that. We have a committee that looks at exemptions, and our committee that looks at the exemptions very often says, well, you know what, this guy does so little that's actually involved in property management at all. We're happy to say you don't need an exemption, carry on. So we'll certainly be aware of that. Thank you.
And I think let's close on that point. And just to wrap this up, it's a factual question, guys. And like your question is saying, there's 25 people, somebody is performing this function, one function. When in doubt, apply for exemption. Put the function out. Let the PPRA make that decision for you. Simple as that. You've been entitled to ask for, you've been empowered to ask for exemption. So take it on and write to them. But don't just stand back. Embrace it. Guys, thank you so much. Jelly, Deborah, thank you very much.